Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, you might think the F1 world is sort of sleeping right now, just enjoying the off-season, but if you actually look behind the curtain, this is probably the most critical time of the entire year. The factories, they are running flat out.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't a holiday. This is where the groundwork for the next, 5 years of the sport is being laid down right now.
Exactly. It's this high-stakes game of new engine rules and a whole lot of political maneuvering.
That's right. And for you listening, what we've done is taken all the latest whispers, all the reports, and we've basically structured them around two completely different stories that are defining the road to 2026.
Okay, so on one side, we have what we're calling the Maranello blueprint.
Yeah.
This is Ferrari's very calculated, very disciplined, almost quiet approach to building their new car.
Less talk, more action. It's a real culture shift under Fred Vasseur.
And on the other side.
On the flip side,
Right.
you've got a full-blown crisis brewing. We're calling it the compression crisis.
Yeah.
It's a huge technical fight over Mercedes and their reading of the new engine rules.
And their rivals are not happy about it.
Not happy is an understatement. They're furious.
So our mission today is to cut through all that noise. We're going to break down what Ferrari is building, why their patience matters so much, and then get into the technical weeds of this loophole Mercedes has apparently found.
Because if this thing sticks, it changes the game for 2026 before a wheel has even turned.
Okay, let's unpack this. We should start with Ferrari, with the stability in Maranello.
Yeah.
For years, the knock on Ferrari was, they were impatient, always chasing that last tenth of a second, even if it cost them reliability.
Right, chasing headlines. But the huge update we're hearing about now isn't about raw speed, it's about being on schedule.
That sounds almost boring for F1, but I get the feeling it's actually the biggest news of all.
It's a tectonic shift for them. The word is the SF26 program is right on time. No big delays, no panics, no last-minute redesigns. Just hitting your milestones in Formula One. That is half the battle.
And they're moving from paper to reality now. That first engine fire-up, which is, this huge moment for any team that's imminent.
It's a massive psychological hurdle. And once that's done, the whole testing schedule just kicks into high gear. First, the shakedown at Fiorano, just to make sure the wheels don't fall off.
The basics.
The absolute basics. But then, the real test, the big one, is in Barcelona, January 26th to the 30th. That's the first proper stress test.
And this is where that Vasseur strategy really comes into play. I mean, the sources are clear. The focus is 100% on reliability and mileage first. So for anyone listening, why is that so important? Why not just go for the fastest lap time out of the box?
Because it's about maturity. It's about self-awareness. And think about it. If you bolt on all your fancy new aero parts, but your new engine blows up on lap 5 of testing, what have you learned?
Nothing. You've learned nothing and you've lost a whole day of track time.
Exactly. You lose the most valuable currency in F1, which is data.
So by focusing on mileage, they're just trying to build a stable platform, a foundation.
Precisely. They're building a robust base. The plan is to run what they're calling the Spec A version in those first tests. It's the basic bomb-proof architecture of the car.
So no fancy bits yet.
Not yet. They'll stress test the new energy recovery system, make sure the cooling is perfect, and only then, later, probably in the Bahrain tests, will they start bolting on the aggressive upgrades, the Spec B, the Spec C parts.
So it's delayed gratification. Smart. It means when Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc finally get in that car, it might not be the fastest on day one.
But it will run, and it will run all day, giving them hundreds of laps to fine-tune it. That is how you build a championship-winning car in the long run.
All right, let's pivot now, and it's a sharp one. We're going from the calm of the Ferrari factory floor to a huge technical fight happening everywhere else.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We're talking about the compression crisis. And the accusation is that Mercedes, and maybe Red Bull too, have found a sort of trapdoor in the 2026 engine rules.
This is classic F1. Pure, high-stakes engineering where you read between the lines of the regulations. The whole thing centers on the engine's compression ratio.
Okay, so the FIA set a rule, a hard cap.
A hard cap of 16-1. And that was meant to limit power, limit thermal efficiency, and just generally keep things within a certain performance window.
Wait, hang on. Let's back up for anyone who isn't an engine mechanic. What exactly is a compression ratio, and why is that 16-1 number so important?
It's basically how much you squeeze the mix of air and fuel in the cylinder right before the spark plug ignites it. The higher the number, the more you squeeze it.
And a harder squeeze means a bigger bang.
A much more efficient bang. You extract way more energy from the same drop of fuel. It translates directly to more horsepower. It's a huge deal.
Okay, so 16-1 is the legal limit. But in Formula One, the rule is never the whole story. It's how you measure the rule.
You've hit the nail on the head. That's the whole controversy. The source of all this fury is that the regulations say that 16-to-1 ratio is measured at ambient temperature.
Ambient temperature. So when the engine is cold, sitting in the garage.
Exactly.
But an F1 engine doesn't race when it's cold. It's running at, what, hundreds of degrees out on the track?
And that's the loophole. When all those metal parts, the engine block, the pistons get incredibly hot, they expand. It's just physics.
Thermal expansion.
Right. And that expansion, even if it's tiny, actually changes the internal volume of that combustion chamber. It gets slightly smaller.
And if the space gets smaller, the squeeze gets harder.
Correct. The effective compression ratio while the car is actually racing becomes significantly higher than the 16-to-1 they measured back in the garage. So on paper, they're legal. But on track, they might be running at 16.5-to-1 or even more.
That is just brilliantly sneaky.
But hang on, wouldn't every engine expand with heat? How did Mercedes supposedly engineer a bigger advantage from this? It comes down to clever material science and engineering the components with this effect in mind. They likely chose specific alloys and designed parts with very specific geometric tolerances that they knew would expand in a predictable way to maximize that on-track ratio.
So they designed the engine to exploit the rule.
They engineered for the expansion, knowing how the rule was written. It's technical brilliance, but it definitely pushes right up against the spirit of the regulation.
And the advantage could be huge. We're talking tenths of a second per lap. In this era, that's a knockout punch.
It's a massive, massive margin. And this is why teams like Ferrari, Honda, and especially Audi, who are pouring a fortune into their new 2026 engine program, this is why they are furious.
It's not just about getting beaten.
No, it's the financial reality. If this loophole is allowed, every other team might have to scrap months of work and spend millions trying to re-engineer their own engine to catch up.
Which really raises that big question for you to think about. When does a clever engineering trick cross the line and become an unfair advantage? So the advantage is potentially enormous, but it's legality.
Yeah.
That's not up to the engineers anymore, is it? The pressure is now squarely on the FIA.
Oh, absolutely. All eyes are on one specific date, January 22nd. That's the day of the big FIA meeting where this interpretation of the rule is going to be hammered out. It's less of a technical meeting and more of a high-stakes legal showdown.
And we've seen this movie before in F1, haven't we? The double diffuser, mass dampers.
Yeah.
One team finds a loophole, and the regulators are stuck.
They're in an impossible spot. Do you penalize genuine innovation, or do you let an advantage that could ruin the competition stand?
It's the classic F1 dilemma.
It is. And based on the reports, I wouldn't hold your breath for an immediate ban. The FIA tends to avoid changing rules on the fly if a team has, technically followed the letter of the law.
So the prediction is the interpretation sticks, at least for now.
That seems to be the most likely outcome, yes. They might admit the rule was badly written, let the advantage stand for the start of 2026, and then issue a clarification.
A fix.
A fix, yeah. Maybe mid-season, but more likely they'll just change the rule for 2027 to close the loophole for good.
Wow. So if that happens, Mercedes gets a huge head start, while Ferrari, with its reliable Spec A car, is already playing catch-up from a technical standpoint.
It sets up this fascinating contrast. Ferrari is trying to build the perfect house from the foundation up. Mercedes, meanwhile, might have just found a secret elevator to the penthouse suite. That FIA ruling is going to decide everything.
Okay, before we get to our final thought, we should probably touch on a few other quick hits from the offseason, just to paint the full picture.
Good call. I mean, while the engine war is the big story, there's other key stuff happening. Max Verstappen, for example, is locked in at Red Bull until 2028. That kind of stability is huge for a team's long-term planning.
And new teams are still pushing forward. Cadillac showed off that really sleek-looking carbon fiber livery for a shakedown run.
Right, which is significant. It shows that new entrants are committed and are already building and testing real hardware. Even with all this political fighting going on, it shows the sport is still healthy.
And there's always movement in the driver market, even for reserves.
Yep. Alpine said goodbye to Jack Duhon. Just a reminder that things are always dynamic, always shifting behind the scenes.
But really, this compression crisis, it's the shadow hanging over everything else right now, isn't it? Every car launch, every test is going to be seen through that lens.
So what does this all mean when you boil it all down for the immediate future of F1?
I think the 2026 season is really being defined by this clash of two completely opposite philosophies.
Okay.
On one side, you have Ferrari and their Maranello blueprint. It's the disciplined, methodical approach Vasseur is betting that building a reliable bedrock is the only way to build a sustainable championship contender.
And on the other side, you have Mercedes and this compression crisis loophole. They're betting on clever, aggressive technical interpretation. They're willing to make the rest of the grid furious to gain that maximum possible advantage right now.
So the main takeaway for you, for anyone trying to follow this, is that the success of these teams in 2026 isn't going to be about one single thing.
No, it hinges on two very specific outcomes. First, can Ferrari actually execute this reliability-first plan without a hitch? And second, what is the political result of that January 22nd FIA meeting?
Because that meeting will decide if Mercedes gets to start this new era with a performance advantage that could be worth half a second a lap.
And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to chew on.
Go on.
In a sport as cutthroat as Formula One, where every single millimeter counts, which path actually leads to long-term success? Is it the disciplined road, the Maranello blueprint that prioritizes reliability and maybe the spirit of the rules? Or is it the aggressive interpretation, the one that whisks all this controversy for that immediate race-winning advantage? The answer to that question is probably going to tell us who's lifting the trophy in 2026 and beyond. We'll just have to watch.